Hey, what's up guys, Paulo Munoz here. I just released a brand new sculpting material for ZBrush. So this video is basically to show you how you can tweak it so you can customize it to your liking. Let's go ahead and jump straight into it. All right, so here we are in ZBrush, and I've been using this character that I'm kind of like working on and off just to test out the new material. And this one that you see here on the screen, that is the brand new material. It is pretty generic in a way, but I think it has certain things that would help you visualize the volumes and understand the volumes that you're working on in 3D a little bit better. Plus, it is cool, I think. So I've been using it for a while, and I decided to share it in case you might find it useful. So this material is made out of 3 sub-materials that I have in here. And this is basically what I'm going to show you how you can customize it. So this is the material palette. I just went to the modifiers, and this is how you can find those 3 materials. Now, I also added this to my custom UI so that I can switch between different materials. I'm going to show you, for instance, the Skin Shade 4, the default one that comes with ZBrush. This is the one that I use for poly paint, really, just to see to visualize the color. I also have my comics material, so this one is also something that I use quite often to sketch or to just create illustrations in this kind of like style. Then I have my sculpting material. This is the one that I'm going to be sharing, and then I also have the basic material. Now the sculpting material is based on the basic material in a way. It's just that it has a bit more contrast. It has a bit of noise as well. It has these, it's kind of like hard to see, but in the crevices, let's say here around this area, it's a bit more yellow than the rest, which is kind of like a blue color or a green blue. So I'm going to show you how to customize all of these things. And yeah, in general, just change it so that you can download this material, start playing around with it, and then change the look and feel of it if you like. So the first one right here is kind of like your general ambient and diffuse. I wouldn't touch this one too much, except for like 2 specific settings. So the first one will be the diffuse. If you increase the diffuse, you can save this number, 0.75, let's say, if you want to go back to it. So if you push it forward, it's just going to brighten everything up. So that's what I'm saying. Try to maintain these numbers relatively low, but you can definitely increase the brightness if that works for you. So I'm going to leave it at 0.75. Or actually 0.78, just so it's a little bit brighter. And the second one, I wouldn't advise, you can totally do it, but I wouldn't advise changing any of these other settings that I set up. So the other one is the noise. So you see, if I get closer, maybe here around the face of this character, there's a little bit of noise. And again, this is something that I just particularly like because it feels like I'm sculpting a much more realistic material that has some type of texture. It's not like the plain surface, but it could be distracting as well for you. So yeah, up to you. So that's basically this noise right here. So mine is set to 0.14, 0.15. If you push it all the way up, it's going to be very, very noisy, and this is definitely very distracting. If you don't like it at all, you can just set it to 0, and then you have like a very plain, polished sculpt. And this is still a bit of a work in progress, so you can see some of the volumes need refinement, especially around this area, for instance. So I just like to have a tiny bit of noise, so 0.15 kind of like works for me, but that's basically it. So in summary, noise and diffuse, those are the ones for the first S1 or slot 1 of the material that you can change, and that will give you a pretty good result. Now, the other 2 materials are basically to break down the properties of the material. So if I turn off by clicking on this icon right here, the third one, that removes that specularity. So you see, this is just changing the amount of specular. I'm going to leave it off. And the second one, it just changes the contrast between those 2 colors that I mentioned. So this is kind of like the cavity detection in a way, right? So this one, the S1, if you compare this with the other ones off with something like the basic material, it is very close. There's a lot more contrast, I would say, but it's very close. It just has a bit of a tint of blue and that sort of thing, but it's very similar. So the trick of the material is, or like not the trick, but what makes it a bit more interesting, the addition of these 2 things, so you can control how much you want to tweak it. So I'll start with the specularity because it's the simplest one. So this third one, you can change the specular. So I like 0.1, but you can just push it all the ways if you want something like hard surface. I mean, this is really, really specular. 0.1 or 0.2 maybe, that would be kind of like the values that I like. But again, just play around with this, see what you like. There's not much to change in this third one. Like I said, it's mainly about the specularity. But if you want to change the sharpness of the specular, you can open up the curve, and you can change this. I made a mistake. Hang on, let's remove that one. There we go. So you can just take this point right here and then you can get it closer so that it's very, very pointy, or you can do it the other way around, like so. And then, it spreads that that specularity. So the one that I like is, oops, let's undo that. Is kind of like that. So I just like to have a bit of that, the best of both worlds in a way. That's basically the S3. And finally, S2. This is the one that gives you that that cavity detection. So like this variation in color here. So for instance, you can take the -1 and set it to 1, and it's going to basically invert the effect. So this is more like I would say like a marble in a way, so that the highlights on the glazing angles is lighter. Whereas if I go the other way around, it's inverted. So you see, hopefully around those things are very subtle. But if you look at the glazing angles here, like I said, the edges, if I switch between -1 and 1, it changes from like dark blue to this sort of like yellow. So this one is another version that I quite like, but I set the default as -1. And this is the whole point of this video, just to show you that within one material, you can tweak things like this and like literally change how the material looks. Now, the most evident one is going back to S1, because we have these colors here, the diffuse and the specular, and this is basically changing how this looks basically, right? So if I take the diffuse and let's set it to more like a clay color, right? Now we're changing the entire mood of the material. And then I go back to the S2. Remember, this is the one that I just mentioned. You can play around with the cavity. And I can take the color B and I can set it to maybe like a dark blue, for example. You sort of see there's a bit of a, blue-purple color in the crevices. And let's go ahead and set the cavity transition back to 1, as I showed you before. So now that color is towards the edges. So you can choose any color here. I would keep it like within the hues of the one that you chose. So if you go for like a red color as the base, so this one right here as a diffuse color, I'm going to exaggerate it just so you can see what I mean. So if I set it to like a really, really bright red, which is kind of cool as well. Maybe if you're doing like Hellboy or something, you can take the S2 and take B, and I would like to keep it within the hues. So it could be kind of like a yellowish tone, like so, like this. Right? And not only that, you can also take the intensity of B and A and play around with those. So the intensity B refers to this color, so the intensity of this color. So if I push it all the way up, it's going to be a lot more intense than what I had before. Again, I like to keep this subtle, but you can play around with that. You can even increase the intensity of A and then change this color to something else. And then you have like almost like a three colors here. So this is kind of like a copper material in a way. So you see the crevices are now taking advantage of this color as well. And again, this all depends on the cavity transition. So if I invert this and set it to -1, now that blue area is more intense around here, and that yellow one is closer to the crevices. So like I said, it's a simple material, a simple setup, but it's very, very useful in a way. So I just wanted to show you how you can tweak it and edit it. Now, to download this material, all you have to do is go to the ZBrush Guides. Let's go ahead and I'll show you what it is. So if you go to the ZBrush Guides, you can either go to Resources, or you can scroll down to the Feature Resource. And this area, whatever is new, whatever I update on the website, will appear first. So you can click on the sculpting material or just go to Resources. And within Resources, you'll see that the sculpting materials is whatever is being updated recently. So you can click on Learn More, or you can click on this one right here. So 3 different ways of accessing the same section, which is basically sculpting materials. I'll leave the link anyway. And then from here, just look for the recent one, which is this Pablanda General Sculpting. So if you click on this one, it will start the download straight away. And all you have to do is just load it up into ZBrush. And that's about it, really. So hopefully you have fun with this material. Again, if you find an interesting way to adjust this material and change the colors and change the way that it works, feel free to share your screenshots of whatever you make with this material. I'd love to see it, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.